Okay, so I finally have the Miss Kelsey on my podcast. I tried to do an appointment with you, I think for 2 months, and we finally did it. I'm grateful that you are and accepted my podcast invitation. The questions are the same for everybody except for two. It's going to be mostly an interview, not a podcast. So before we begin, maybe you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Kelsie Sheren. I'm the CEO of Brass in Unity. I'm a mindset coach with professional athletes and CEOs. I'm also a combat veteran with extensive experience in trauma healing post-service, and I'm a author and a TED speaker.
Okay, great. That sounds interesting. The first question is, how was your childhood?
Fantastic. It was a traditional childhood. I played outside a lot. We were in nature most of the time. I was a high-level athlete till I was about 20 years old. So the majority of my time was based around fighting and was based around my career, which was to be a professional athlete and to strive in what it meant to do something that others couldn't, and to do it at a young age where most kids were focused on birthday parties and cake and TV. And my career suggested if I wanted to do this professionally, that I would have to give up my mornings of cartoons and playtime, and I would have to go train. And that's what I did. I did it for the majority of my life. And it's something that I'm grateful that I did, because it gave me an insight into the world at a very young age and what it meant to become something great and to be somebody that didn't accept mediocrity in their life. So it was pretty fantastic.
How's your relationship with your parents?
Not bad. They live across the country. So my parents are long haul truck drivers. They have always been, I've always had a stay at home mom my whole life. So my mother definitely was the one that was home. My father was on the road the majority of my life. He would go away for a couple weeks at a time, and my mom raised my brother and I when he was gone. And she was the one who was, we weren't latchkey kids. We were lucky enough to have a mom that I come home from school and she would have dinner made, and the laundry was always done and the house was always clean. And my parents were very involved in my life. My mom never missed a rugby game, a soccer match, a taekwondo tournament. She was everywhere all of the time, whether she flew or drove or, gave up everything in their entire retirement to support my brother and our sports careers. They were definitely very attentive parents. And then as I got older, my parents gave me the leeway to decide where I want to go and what I want to do. And they gave me, more importantly, the tools to become a successful adult at a very young age, so that if I decided I wanted to go do something that was extraordinary, it wasn't made out to be a big deal. My mom had this motto. She comes from a very very hardy stock from Hungary, and my grandfather escaped when the Soviets went into Hungary after the war, and he came over on a boat with like 11 friends, and I think 3 of them made it to the country. So my mom was raised in an environment that was it's interesting to see the Western world now and the way that children deal with, I don't say trauma, but they everything's trauma. Words are violence, So when you hear a kid complain that it's raining outside and they don't want to go outside, I often think back to the way their adults raise those children. And as we speak right now, I just dropped my child off at the forest school, and it's downpouring rain and 17 degrees, and he's happy to go, because I said, this is what it means to be a person that can handle the world and that can handle adversity and build resilience. And he looked at me, he goes, I know, because I'm going to be great one day. And I said, it's not that you're going to be great one day. It's that you're already great. And now we just need to keep forging you into the athlete and the man that you want to be. And he's 8 years old, by the way. So I think that the way I was raised helped me become a better parent. And I think that the way I was raised shows that you can overcome and build resiliency if you're given the right tools. Because, my mother used to cut the word can't out of the dictionary. So whether that's, in English or French or whatever language you're raised in, my mom was like, yeah, that word doesn't exist. And that only exists in your mind if you allow it to feed into your mind. So if you tell yourself you can and you try hard enough, you can and you will. And so I was raised very much with that attitude, and that was my ethos, and that's kind of the ethos I raised my son with as well.
Beautiful. I will not talk a lot. I only ask the questions.
Yeah, this is very
Um,
strange for me. I'm not gonna lie. This is weird.
so how's your relationship with money?
Pretty good. I had a hard time with it for a long time because the way I was raised was, I grew up in the middle of nowhere in the woods, and we cut and split wood to heat our house, and we had money. My parents, were middle class parents. We were never really told no if we wanted to go, you know, buy the t-shirt or go get the pair of jeans. We were just told that if you want to have things outside of what we will provide for you, you have to get a job. So I started working when I was 11. I started babysitting for families when I was 11 years old. I was already by then a first degree black belt in Taekwondo, and I'd been teaching since I was 7. So the idea of having a job or being responsible wasn't a big deal for me by the time I was 11. And in Canada, as long as you do, I think it's like a babysitter course or something. Basically, it's like CPR in case a kid chokes or whatever. Then you can go to work. So I started babysitting at 11, and I started to develop my own relationship with money at that age. But I definitely grew up in a life where there was what I consider the mentality of lack. So we didn't have that mentality of abundance. There was always a little bit of stress around finances. So for us, I grew up in the mindset of lack, which was, we might not always have enough, and that we always have to hoard everything. So for me, I had to learn how to manipulate and change my own viewpoints, and retrain my brain around abundance versus lack, and how money shows up in life and what you can do for it. And now my relationship with money is significantly different than I was as a child. And that's only because I had to reframe and work on my perspective around what money means, what money allows you to do, what money gives you access to or doesn't give you access to. And ultimately, I've come to this conclusion in like the past couple of weeks that money is everywhere, and money also doesn't matter. And I say that because we print it like it's everywhere, and we act as if like we're running out of it when our governments are just straight out printing it on a printing press like it's nothing. So I'm hard pressed to believe that money means anything anymore. They're just numbers on a screen that a bank can hit a button and manipulate. So I don't, money isn't what it used to be for me. That's for sure.
Very nice. Next question. What are you afraid of?
Oh, a good one. I don't get asked that a lot. Are we talking about ideologically or like genuine,
Anything.
like just
In
fear?
general, what are you afraid of?
Mm, mediocrity, wokeism, ideology. Um, I'm afraid of people not meeting their own potentials, which causes people to believe that they can't change or better the world in any way because they think that they're only one person and that one person can't make a dent. I'm afraid of people settling and then bringing that attitude around my kid. I'm afraid
Mm.
of shitty parents not doing a good enough job and that rubbing off on my child. I'm afraid of like the basic things, which to me mean what it means to become a successful adult in this world and handle the world that we're leaving our kids. So for me, my fears don't really stem around me personally, but they more stem around the environment my child grows up in. Am I doing it right? Am I supporting him where he needs it? Am I pushing him hard enough? My fears are based around making sure that I do a good enough job, and that whoever I introduce my child to, or I put him in the environment, that I've done what it means to be a good parent. So my biggest fears are making sure that I can provide in a way that is going to create this human that can genuinely change the world, because somebody's got to.
You're the first one that answers this question that way. That's very
Really?
interesting. Yeah. Because
What do
people
people
say,
normally
yeah,
say?
I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of like really like general things. But you're the only one that is thinking about the environment, about the society. Everyone thinks about themselves. And you're the
Mm.
first one who thinks outside. the box really. So,
I feel
okay,
like you're
that's a good thing.
surprised. I feel like you're surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that because people say, "Hey, I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid losing my child." Okay, you said that, but in another context, um, I'm afraid of like really general things.
What are you
Um,
afraid of?
no one asked me that. Um,
I'm not the same as everyone you interview. I hope you're realizing this right now.
I did.
What are
Um,
you afraid of? There's got to be something.
um, not studying, like I'm a dentist and I would like to
Okay.
study something else, but due to the
Mm,
work, I am afraid it's a really general like anxiety, not
mm,
studying that faculty, what I
mm.
am I would like to do the next years, like future plans, not fulfilling my future plans
You know why
because
you will, but do you know why you will fulfill them though?
I
Because you're
have the
conscious.
will.
You have the will, but you're consciously aware of the things that you want to do in your life. So that's why you will fulfill them regardless of fear, which is this false evidence appearing real. You'll be
Yeah,
fine.
I hope so. Thank you. Okay, next question. If you were not afraid of anything, what would you do?
Again, I think that if it scares the shit out of you, 100% should be doing it. And I think that if you're fearful of it, that's when you need to lean in the most. I think I'm afraid of like in terms of my personal, like, what am I afraid of? It's like I don't have those types of fears. The things where fear can creep up for me are like when I go step out on a stage for the first time, or when I change up the way I'm doing a speaking gig. I'm not fearful of something negative happening. I'm fearful that I don't live up to the standard that I have for myself, that I portray to the world. And so it's, am I providing what they paid for? Am I doing what I said I would do? Am I showing up the way that they want me to show up? Meaning they hired me for a reason. So I'm fearful of letting others down. I'm fearful of letting myself down because I know what I'm capable of when I put 100% in. And so, I don't know that I don't have any fears, but I think that if we live in the mindset that we have the potential to be afraid of everything, then that will kill more dreams, more hope, more goals than anything else in this world can. Fear is a motivator. Fear is a really fascinating one for me because I watched how easily we can use it to manipulate human beings into doing what we want to do overseas. Like I've seen how much fear can become a paralyzer. It's not
Mhm.
difficult to get someone to tell you something. All you have to do is dangle something they love and care about. And for example, when I was in Afghanistan, all we had to do was take away your goats and you would crumble under our pressure. Like fear can be used in such a disgusting, dirty way. And then fear can be a fuel if you allow it to be. And if it's used in the right way. Like I'm fearful of not being the best parent that I can be. I'm not looking at anybody else for parenting advice. I'm looking at myself and going, what could I have done better? So that's a fear. That's a real fear. But then you can take it the other way and say, I'm fearful that bombs are going to drop on my house. It's like, okay, well, depending on where you live, is that a real valid fear, or are you just being fearful because you've watched too much media? So
Mm.
I think that fear can be a motivator. And I think that fear can also be the thing that causes people to freeze in time and get them killed, depending on where they are in their life. So fear is a funny one. It's a funny one because it just all depends on whose hands it's in and who decides to wield it.
Next question, which is like now personal. Why did you choose to be a combat veteran?
I didn't choose to be a combat veteran. I choose to join the army. And now the difference between those two, and people could say, but you did join the army and you knew you were in an active war. And it's like, yeah, of course I did. But I was also 19 and I had never joined the military before, watched military movies, shot a gun, ever hunted or done anything like that. And then I went from I want to go serve my country, like everybody else was told, was, you go kill the bad guys before the bad guys come here. And it's like, well, you're kind of seeing a lot of that now. It's like, how much did that really help anybody? Because guess what? They're still fucking here. So for me, it's more along the lines of, are we joining and doing the job because of the job? We love the job. Are we going to do the job because I strictly wanted to go overseas? And it's like, I knew I was going overseas, but I didn't have any qualms with the people overseas. I didn't have any malice towards people overseas. I was told something by the media over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then I was told a message by my staff, which was Canadians were being killed, Americans were being killed, Brits were being killed, Aussies were being killed, Italians were being killed. And for me, the only war I had known about, learned about, or ever been around the conversation of was World War II. So for me, joining the army, it wasn't as much about becoming a combat veteran as much as it was about going and doing my duty, which to me felt like protecting the person to the left and the right of me and making sure that somebody wasn't kicking in my door when I came home. So I end up becoming a combat veteran because I joined the army and we were in an active war. And like many people that are in the military right now, some have never deployed. And a lot of people won't, and they won't fight in active wars. And it's only because just time and circumstance when they joined and when we were in war. But the thing I will say is I'm proud of what I did because my job wasn't to, single-handedly kill everybody. My job was to go and protect women and children. And that meant a very different role than a lot of the men had, which, don't get me wrong, I fired my weapon plenty of times in combat and I don't regret it and I won't regret it and I never will, because I will be the person coming home if it comes towards you or me, period, full stop. The difference is when you face people who would rather die than live, you're dealing with something different. So it wasn't that I wanted to be a combat veteran and hurt anybody, but I also believe wholeheartedly that women and children should have as many rights as anybody else in this world. And if they're told otherwise, I'll happily go and remind you why you should.
Okay. I'm only asking questions. I'm not going to discuss anything. So,
Your face says everything, though.
my face says everything. Yeah, I did invite you because you're a woman in the military. I was born and raised up here in Germany, and I wanted to go into the military when I was 18 after graduating, but it was not accepted because I'm wearing hijab. So when I saw you, it was really like, oh my God, there is a woman.
Well, you
So,
come to Canada, you can wear a hijab and be in our military all you want.
yeah, it's my home country, so I will say
Germany is?
Germany, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, next question. What was the transition from the military to civilian life like for you?
I think it's one of the hardest parts of, well, we know statistically based on the suicide stats, it's the hardest part of service. Transition points are where we lose the most people. We've lost, 4 times more people to suicide than we have in the war. And I mean, I think that goes towards telling the realities of what we're doing wrong and where we're messing up. And I think when people are transitioning out, there's a few things that you need to do to make sure that veteran has a successful transition. And a couple of those things are really simple. It's a radical amount of accountability in terms of community. You can't allow somebody to be just staying at home by themselves, locked in their home. It's not going to be a recipe for anything good or productive. We need to grab the veteran and we need to make sure that they're in the community and that they are feeling supported. We need to stop overprescribing pharmaceutical drugs to veterans who don't need them. We need to start addressing trauma, not just from the post-traumatic stress area, but also from the undiagnosed traumatic brain injuries that we're seeing, because 11 out of the 13 symptoms of post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury overlap. And so a lot of people are going misdiagnosed, and then you're seeing down the line things spiraling out of control and getting worse, and then them taking their own lives. I think that when you take someone's purpose, their identity, and their career away from them, whether it's by their choice to retire or not, I think when a human being loses purpose, I think that's where human beings fall off. We're a tribal group. We are a group that needs purpose in order to wake up every morning and feel fulfilled. That's why you see the absolute epidemic of young individuals with no direction, no religion, no drive, and more importantly, no passion or purpose in their life, deciding to do either stupid things or become radicalized in multiple different ideologies and religious issues across the globe. You see individuals struggle because when you come back from deployments and you go back into the civilian world, you become a civilian, you're still a veteran, but you become a civilian. And I would argue that overseas didn't feel as difficult as coming back to Canada and trying to feel like I somehow fitted in. So, you know, I hear this a lot from other veterans who have deployed, that it's much easier to be on deployment than it is to be in this world. And it's true on some levels. Of course, people are trying to kill you and you're trying to kill them. And there's a different complexity that falls with that. There's a different ideology that wraps around that and what you have to come to terms with, but you don't have to worry about bills and groceries and pick up and drop off and talking to parents at the schools about absolutely nothing that means nothing to your heart and soul, all to then turn around and go home and do dishes and laundry and go do pickup again. Like, I feel like if you don't have, you know, for some people that's enough, for some of us it's not. And if you don't have a purpose or a greater good or something you're charging towards outside of your family unit, a lot of people fall off because they feel like their purpose is over and everything they've done great in their life is done. And that's obviously not true. That's not factual in any way. And that we know that if we can remove the pharmaceutical intervention and give people genuine support, that we know not only heals post-traumatic stress, but heals the wound of the loss of community and heals the wound of loss of purpose, we actually have a real chance at having our veterans survive.
Okay. Next question. If money is guaranteed for life, for you and your family, and your generation after you, but the condition is you have to choose a job, what would it be?
One job? That's hard for me because I do about 7 on average a day, different ones, different people, different things, completely different. Some days it's packing orders, some days it's building products, some days it's doing keynote speeches on, you know, massive platforms. Some days it's just being mom. And so I would like to think that the answer for me would be if money was never an issue in my lifetime or my son's lifetime, I would just be mom. But then I think that would also do a few things. You know, I grew up with a mother who was just mom. And that is enough. You're raising the world's humans. You're creating the next generation. That should be enough. Unfortunately, I was raised to believe that I can be whatever the hell I want to be. And I was raised to believe that I could do it all. And so from the age of 4, because that's when I started, I believed that. And so being just mom to me, unfortunately, isn't enough to fill my cup, because I do feel like where we are in our world and where we are going in the next generation's world is if we don't take some accountability and put some major change in, unfortunately, my son's not going to have the right to make a decision about where he wants to go outside of his 15-minute city after he's been on his screen for 12 hours and eating processed food. So I believe that even if I had all the money in the world and my son had all the money in the world, I would be tackling these political issues, these ideological issues, these abuses of power with eugenics in Canada the same way I'd be doing it. I'm doing it right now. But the only difference is I'm doing all of that plus being a badass mom. So I think that you can do everything. And I think that I don't get paid for a lot of the stuff I do. A lot of people I work with, I don't get paid with. A lot of organizations I support, I don't get paid with. Money isn't the marker of success and happiness. It is just the means to the end and the fuel. The marker of success and happiness is determined by my family unit and determined by how I raise my child. So I would like to think it would be enough, but I am also honest enough to know and willing enough to say that it wouldn't be enough.
Miss Kelsie, in one word.
I don't know that there is one word. That's the unfortunate part. And I wish I had more of a thesaurus to be able to, you know, a speech center to be able to pull a really cool word from. I have a lot of different descriptors. Relentless, I think, is probably a really good one because it doesn't really matter what it is and in any area. You have to be relentless to get to the levels I have in all of the areas I have.
I will take that. If you have your own heart in your hands, what would you advise it?
Is there a specific topic or just general?
General, always general.
You know, I work a lot with prayer and plant medicine. And I grew up as I call myself a recovering Catholic. I grew up in Catholic school and church and, you know, all of the things. And I did it from the moment I was born to, I think, when I could make my own decisions. So, you know, around 17. And I never fit in to that ideology. I never fit into what it meant to, you know, hear the word God will love you, but I wanted all the things that God said I couldn't have, because if I had them, then I wasn't going to be loved, right? Like my hand tattoos, my arm tattoos, my piercings, my choices. So I never knew who I was for a very, very long time, and I went through some trauma within some of that. And so for me, when I look at my life and I look at where I'm at after working a lot with plant medicine and finding my faith again and finding what it means to be a present, intentional human being and being intentional with everything I do, I believe that I would just tell myself what I tell myself each and every day, that I am on the right path, and that if I'm not on the right path, I'll be corrected and I'll be shown. And up to this point, everything that's happened in my life, regardless of how some people view it, whether it's negative or positive or traumatic or whatever, I feel very strongly that in these past 5 years has been the most honest, ruthlessly true, meaning that my heart is leading everything I do. Nothing comes from my head. It all comes from my heart, because I'm a big believer that when you listen to only up here, this will always steer you wrong. But as long as you come from in here, it'll never, ever tell you you're doing anything wrong. And if you are, it will be honest. And so it's just about whether you're willing to listen to it or not. So if it were my heart, I would just say, keep listening to my gut, because that thing never seems to be wrong.
What's the best moment in your life?
My son. We had an interesting pregnancy. I'm only 5 foot. I don't know how big you are as a human or if you've had kids, but I'm really small. And I don't have a lot of space on my torso. My ribs sit on top of my hip bones. And so I didn't have a lot of room for him. And we lost our first child, and we got pregnant almost to the day a year later with Jack. And so it was this really cool moment where, you know, you realize that, you know, that's why we're so different, men and women, right? We can make human beings and populate the planet. Whether anybody else has anything else they want to say about that, that doesn't mean anything to me, because until you've felt a human being inside of you and you grew this tiny little alien, you don't have anything to say about it. And when he came a month early, and we were really scared because his heart rate kept dropping and he wasn't breathing right. And so when we finally got him out, he was gray and he didn't make noise, and they were really worried about him. And he got sick for a little while, like really sick. And he started to become lethargic and jaundice. And so the two scariest moments of my life and the two most beautiful moments of my life are highly intertwined, and they have a lot of emotional complication. Meaning I was really, really, really scared, the most I've ever been scared, more scared than I was standing in front of the Taliban when they, you know, pointed AK-47 at me. I don't give a shit about those people at all. They don't mean anything to me. They don't scare me at all. The scariest thing in the world is watching your child come out and it not make a noise and be gray and get ripped off of you as quickly as possible, to watch them beat on his little chest. That's scary. That's reality. That's terrifying. Nothing else matters at that point. Nothing you can do to me scares me as much as that'll ever scare me. And so when little man came out, until we got him healthy, that was the scariest I had ever been. I don't think that anything will ever top it ever again in my life.
And understand that feeling. My mother lost her daughter. My sister was 6 in the hospital here in Hamburg, and it was a medical error, and she died in front of my mom. And it's really, really hard. So I understand any woman and any mother, especially, losing her child, even if it's a toddler or a newborn baby, someone, it's just the pain is can't be described. So I saw my mom, I saw my father, and the pain I can't forget. I was 11.
Mm.
And so this is like a trauma or like scenes in my head I can't forget. So yeah,
Yeah.
I totally
And
understand.
you watch whenever you decide to have children one day, that'll be careful with that, right? Because that is your lens now and how you view children. So, and the
Yep,
vulnerability of children, you have to be careful that you don't put that lens on your life because it can cause undue stress and anxiety, right? Of fear.
that's true. Last question. What makes you you?
I this past couple weeks has been an interesting one. I as you can tell, I tell everything in stories, so bear with me. But I got Jordan Peterson and I were attacked this week, last week by a death cult. And it's been really fascinating to kind of watch what comes out of me when these situations happen and what it triggers in me and all of these things. And, I think I said this quote, a couple of them this week that I stand pretty hard behind. And the devil can come knock on everyone's door, but the difference is this time the devil didn't know whose door they were knocking on.
Hmm.
And what that signals to me and what I stand for is that I'm very unassuming. Quite unassuming. I'm 5 foot tall, 112 pounds, just looks like an everyday mom, wear sweatpants most days with my hair on top of my head. I am, do my own thing, stay pretty secluded. I seem very unassuming. The past 10 years has taught me that I am as terrifying as some of the baddest dudes that have ever walked the face of the earth. The only difference is I go about it very differently. And so I say that to say, because I think that when you are, as a human being, put in positions to either defend yourself or stand up for something that's worth standing up for, I think you find out really quickly where the depths you can go to. And I think that me as a human being, regardless of being relentless, I am not one of those people that quit. So that almost scares the hell out of me more than anything else does about me, is because I don't have a off button and I don't have a quit button. And so for me, it showed me that I'm a lot more capable than most people want to acknowledge or assume. And all that ever means is that I am somebody that, if you're on the other side of, I would really hate for that to be you, because I know now how relentless I am. And I know the ends of the earth that I'll go, and the depths I'll go, and the sleep I'll lose, and the things I'll do if it's righteous. And so I'm just an everyday person who got fed up with mediocrity. And I'm an everyday person who decided that I don't have to be one of the 8 billion people that go along with the status quo. I can be one of the people that genuinely and relentlessly have the opportunity and ability, skill set, and community to change the fucking world. And I plan on doing all of that with who I am. And I think it takes a person like me to be able to not only have the goals and the level of the goals that I have, but to genuinely show up and knock them down. So I'm just a person that has been through hell and back and understands how important life is, and to use every minute of our life and our existence on this face of the earth for something greater. And I refuse to do anything with my days other than just that.
Hmm. I actually missed a question.
Okay.
Um, the actually what makes you use the last question, but the question before was or is any regrets?
No, no. I think that if you live in a space of regret, it's always going to pull you back to your past, and you're
Hmm.
always going to have a tie to it. I think that if you regret what you've done, then you see that as a loss. See, I've done bad things I don't love. That doesn't mean that I haven't done things I wish I could have done better, but I don't regret them. I've done bad things that I think kept me sitting in front of you right now and not the other person, and I don't regret that. Um, I think that regret ties a idea of failure, an idea of loss and sadness. And I think that when you regret things, you give power to those moments in your present time. And I don't regret things because I did the best I could at the time in every situation. I know that about me, that at that time, whatever happened, whatever I've done, whatever situation I've been in, I did my best in those moments. And so to regret is to look back and think that I didn't try hard enough or I didn't do good enough. When I know that in those moments at that time, I did the best I could with what I had to give. And so, no, I don't regret anything. And no, I wouldn't change anything, because the other side of the coin is you could turn around and say that you would change something or you can regret something. But those things and those moments, those are the moments that you're put into the forge. You know, those are the moments that you're in the fire. Those are the moments that make you who you are, that sharpened edge, that blade that can't be broken. That's the thing I want to strive for in my life. It's okay to go through things and hard things and terrifying things and traumatic shit, but it's not okay to turn around and regret them. And I'll tell you why, because you would not be where you are right now without them. And I wouldn't want it easier. I wouldn't want it to be different. Now, if you asked me that when I was in it, maybe I would have said yes. But the difference is I really, really love who I am right now. And I know that none of that is possible if I wasn't constantly put into the fire. It was my decision to come out of everything that I've come out of. And that doesn't come with the mindset of regret. That comes with the mindset of I did the best I could at the time, and I will continue to learn, and I will continue to do better, and I will continue to push it forward so that I don't look at my life and go, I have regrets. Because I think regrets are for people who don't live a present life, an intentional life. I think it's for people who just go by and accept whatever they want to accept because they just want to fit in. I think it's better to just stand up for what you believe in when you believe it at the time and do the best you can with the knowledge you have. And if you're presented with new evidence, then you need to be willing to look at it. But I don't regret my life, and I don't regret anything I've said or done either.
That's nice. That's beautiful. We reached the end. It was an interview more than a podcast. I hope all the questions were fine for you or to you. Yeah, maybe before we end, maybe you could say something. If not, then we're done.
It's so very cut and dry with you. It's been very interesting to chat with you. You're very different, unlike anybody I've ever sat with before. So I got to say, this is very different. It's been fun, but different. And I think different is needed. And I think different is good. And I think different stands out. And I think different has potential to be something greater. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I'm sorry it took so long. Sometimes right now my life is not of my choosing. Sometimes my life is things are thrown at you and you get to decide, do you want to keep going further, or do you want to accept the status quo? So I think for me and anybody who's listening, this is a good show for several reasons. And it's because it challenges questions that people don't get asked. It challenges people in the way that it forces them to look backward at their life and decide, are they proud of what they've done, or are they able to look at it face on? And I think that that's what makes you unique and different. And not that you need mine, but I encourage you to keep going down the path that you're going with this, because I think it is different and I think it's needed and necessary.
Thank you. We're done.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
fucking strange, girl.